I wish to thank the government of Enugu State and indeed the government of the Southeastern State for their role.
That in the history of our relationship with the Fulani communities, no Fulani man has ever been hurt in this country.
Secretary General of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, Dr. Mohammed Sanusi Bakindo, has been re-elected for another 3-year term. This is the fallout of the 176th ordinary meeting of the organization. The Joint Ministerial Conference also extended all production cuts for 9 months. And that concludes the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria continues with Kirian and Kingsley after this break.
One Football Confederation, 24 teams, 6 stadiums, 4 cities, 504 African stars, 1 trophy. The Africa Cup of Nations Egypt 2019 comes alive from June 21 with the showpiece final on July 19, 2019. Watch the 52 matches of the tournament live on Africa's biggest and largest television network, NTA, in partnership with Hot Sports. Be part of the biggest soccer fiesta in the African continent as the Super Eagles go on a bold mission to clinch the prestigious title for the 4th time, to the excitement of millions of fans across the length and breadth of Nigeria. Nigeria's premier sports production and marketing group, Hot Sports, partners with the biggest, the largest, and the #1 television network in Africa, the NTA, to give Nigerians a memorable viewing experience. Boost fan support for the Super Eagles to glory in Egypt. For inquiries, please contact Abubakar on 0803-331-0175 and Felix on 0803-308-2375. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
NTA Television College Jos announces admissions into 2-year diploma programs in film and television production, television engineering, and broadcast journalism. The sale of forms will commence on the 13th of May and run through 30th July 2019. Admission forms can be obtained from all marketing offices, NTA state capital stations, zonal centers, or at the office of the academic secretary, NTA Television College, Rayfield, Jos.
On payment of a non-refundable fee of 7,500 naira in bank draft in favor of NTA TV College. Applicants can also obtain the forms through the NTA TV College portal at www.ntatvc.edu.nj.
Applicants are required to possess 5 credits in GCE or SSCE in relevant areas of study in not more than 2 sittings, including English and mathematics. All properly completed forms attached with photocopies of credentials must be submitted on or before 30th July 2019. For further inquiries, please visit our website at ntatvc.com or call 0803-3144-383.
NTA TV College, training you to be the best you want to be.
Registrar, Announcer.
Our country is filled with people with different skills, talents, and passion to succeed. And like the game football, we all have a position to play. Some save the day. They put themselves on the line for the others. They are the goalkeepers. Some are in charge of protection. They keep the line safe from attackers. They are the defenders. The midfielders are the ones who bring us together. They also show support and point other players in the right direction. And the strikers, they are the go-getters. They break barriers and steal the show. As a team, we are unstoppable. For this country to succeed, we must play as Nigeria united.
There's a smarter way to live with Airtel Binge Plan, the ideal data plan for those heavy data moments. Get a 2GB daily binge plan for 500 naira. Dial *141# to activate. Live smarter with data.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
holler back for a minute to the old school. Everybody love me when I do what I do, cause when I come through I got the power of cool. The power of cool.
Our country is filled with people with different skills. And like the game football, we all have a position to play. Some are in charge of protection. They keep the line safe from attackers. They are the defenders. To win, we must come together as one team. We must play as Nigeria united.
And we thank you for all staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria for today. Now time for business. Stakeholders advocate deepening governance and integrity in Nigeria's business environment as insurance experts converge on Abuja with a call that the industry be better repositioned for optimal performance. Details of these and more are from Joy Uso.
Good to have you join us on Business News. Corruption, a major challenge in developing economy, have again been identified as a tool that weakens investments, drives capital flights, increases the cost of doing business, and decreases per capita income. To this end, stakeholders have agreed that Nigeria must deepen governance, leadership, and ethics in the business environment if it is to experience a thriving economy. This formed part of outcome at the 2019 conference of the Convention on Business Integrity. And the one-day conference was a platform to connect businesses that value integrity. They also agreed that there is a need for a critical mass of ethically minded companies in Nigeria to align and push for ethics, governance, and integrity in the business environment, thus leading Nigeria to economic prosperity. In a related development, revitalization and repositioning of the Nigerian insurance sector is key to the development of insurance practice in the country. Shimobi Water Naji reports that participants at the conference believe that the insurance industry is long overdue for consolidation and restructuring.
Exploit opportunities of digitalization and to tame the culminating consequence of inflation and devaluation of the Naira, heighten the necessity of the ongoing reforms in the insurance industry, such as the expansion of insurance distribution channels, financial inclusion, corporate governance enforcement, market discipline professionalism, and the recapitalization exercise aimed at strengthening insurance institutions.
This effort would produce very strong and outstanding companies that would contribute effectively to the gross domestic product of the nation. This plan has charted a new course for the service with the sole aim of ensuring a service that is efficient, productive, incorruptible, and citizen-centered.
Now a quick check on how the equities market fared this Monday. That's Business News. Many thanks for your time. I'm Joy Uzo.
All right, many thanks, Joy, for the business package. For us next is Newspaper Review.
It is my pleasure to welcome our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atoyebe. Bayo, good morning.
Thank you, Kirian. Good morning. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Bayo, good to see you. Kirian, we'll begin with you.
We have about 5 newspapers to review this morning.
That's right.
Let's begin with the Nigerian Tribune. The Nigerian Tribune, above the nameplate, front page comment, stopping federal government's Ruga settlements for herders. All right, now let's go to the stories below the nameplate. Koza pastor of Fatoimbo steps down. It's on page 34. With the rider, lawyers divided over probe allegations. Court orders a final forfeiture of $8.4 million, about 7.4 billion naira, linked to Patience Jonathan. That's on page 32 of the Tribune. Now, the lead story this morning on the Tribune is a minimum wage. Nationwide strike looms. Labour accuses federal government of derailing implementation. Well, there are other striking headlines here. Presidential election, Atiku PDP to call 400 witnesses within 14 days is on page 32. Now, Southern Middle Belt leaders to presidency disclose gazette number for Ruga states that applied. All right, Benue Governor kicks as Bauchi, Plateau, Gombe back the scheme. The story is on pages 5, 6, and 7.
Okay, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. Punch above the nameplate. We have two headlines there we were taking. Federal government pays 135 billion naira payee debt to states. That's on page 31. Payee stands for pay as you earn, as the personal income tax. Federal government pays 135 billion naira payee debt to states, page 31. Buhari sacks controversial NHIS boss. That's on page 9. As Professor Usman Yusuf. Buhari sacks controversial NHIS boss. Lead story for the Punch comes with a kicker. Ruga settlements. Southeast governors, Otom, tackle federal government. And Fayemi says no outsider can take Ekiti land. And there's a quote there for emphasis attributed to the Ekiti state governor. If there are negative comments being peddled around that some people are coming to take over Ekiti land, they are mere hearsay. It cannot happen in Ekiti, except I am no longer the governor. That's according to Fayemi, Ekiti state governor. Photograph on the front page of the Punch shows the scene of an accident in Benue State yesterday. That's involving a fuel tanker. Skulls fear dead as tanker explodes in Benue. That story is in greater detail on page 4. Again, northern leaders meet over insecurity. That's page 10. Minimum wage. Labour threatens strike over delay in implementation. Kirian read that already from one of the papers. And then alleged rape. Koza pastor Fatoimbo takes leave of absence. That's page 9. Gunmen killed DPO, pregnant cop, 5 others in Bayelsa and Rivers. That's on pages 4 and 5. Atiku to call 400 witnesses as lawyers proposed Thursday for trial. Page 18. Ayo.
Well, let's start with the human interest story. A tanker plying Aliede Road to Macaulay, unfortunately, tumbled. And expectedly, citizens gathered and they were trying to scoop petrol from the falling tank. And you know, petrol tankers have petrol contained in compartments. Now, some of them took metals and were trying to hit the tanker as a means of scooping petrol. That ignited the spark. And you can imagine what has happened. I think this message has not gone down enough because it's not the first time, it's not the second time, several times that you are having tanker falling down and people rushing to scoop petrol and eventually they end up in an inferno. I think there should be a lot of enlightenment about people. When these things happen, looking for something cheap like petrol can be perilous, and that is the consequence of what has happened.
But just before you leave the subject, Kirian as well, the first point to note, and you find it usually at scenes of an accident, people, would go there scavenging, for the items belonging to the accident victims or otherwise. The same thing it is with a petrol tanker that has crashed or otherwise. When you go there to try to scoop petrol, in the first instance, if you are caught with the petrol, it is stealing. Yes. Stealing. It's as simple as that in the first instance. Plus, the hazard you then face with such a highly inflammable material as petrol.
Well, it is part of our attitude, attitude of Nigerians towards things, because the accident, recorded when people go to scoop fuel from failed tanker has always been there over the years. It's been happening, in almost all parts of this country. So how much longer should we go sensitizing people on the danger of fuel? Even the local dwellers understand that it can be ignited at any moment. So why rush to scoop?
The other story, of course, relates to Ruga settlement, which again, the controversy now is becoming clearer. Governor Solomon Lalong of Plateau State gave a clarification that he is a member of the National Economic Council Committee that sat and deliberated on the subject of ranching, that it is not compulsory. All the 12 states that have participated volunteered. Nobody is compelling them. Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State also says that he welcomes the Ruga initiative. He told State House correspondent that Bauchi State will cooperate with the federal government as in its implementation. He says, as a state, there are issues that are within their own competencies and there are others that are beyond. He said the Ruga project will address the issues of insecurity in the country. He said he came to confer with the president on some of the insecurity challenges he's facing in Bauchi. He said, I am a leader of the people many consider as All Progressive Congress than PDP. However, as a state that has 60 to 70% Fulani people, Bauchi welcomes the initiative. The other story, running story, is the story of the cleric. The cleric at the center of demonstration on rape allegation has stepped aside from the pulpit. He announced his decision to take a leave of absence from the pulpit. He says that this is an advice from his mentors and he intends to stick by it. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari is reported to have expressed surprise that the Super Eagles are being owed allowances. Governor Simon Lalong told State House correspondents that at a meeting with the president said football is a unifying factor in Nigeria. Hence, players who are playing for Nigeria are motivated when they get what their due entitlement is. The president promised to handle the matter immediately. He said, I signed these allowances and they are not paid to them. Governor Lalong said he was a footballer, and in those days, people play for patriotism. But these days, there is a combination of patriotism and economic aspects. He says he's disappointed because Nigeria beat Guinea, but Madagascar defeated Nigeria. Yes, he said he was seriously disappointed.
This actually reminded me of that last match, which I actually hate to recall, but now that you've raised it, as a matter of fact, well, in my own consideration, as a former footballer as well, the boys did not do well. They fumbled. They fumbled. There was no cohesion. It was not individual efforts they were making. That's why they were devastated.
There was also this story about the youth.
Maybe they should have learned some. They should have taken some lessons from Bendel Insurance, which took on a club called Sotema Football Club. It already the Africa Cup Winners' Cup in 1979 or 1980 in Antananarivo, which was the capital then, which I said the capital. That's Sotema. That's Bendel Insurance.
Let me borrow Nigerian parlance.
And you tell us about.
I get them before. Nobody say I get you.
That lessons. That's why history is coming back to the curriculum.
Now, they don't watch that match.
I said they should have learned lessons from Bendel Insurance boys.
Bendel Insurance. That was a relegation at this moment.
My attention is, I'm drawing your attention to what the youth are saying. Before it was youth not too young to run. Now it is youth not too young to lead. At the National Summit of Youth, they demanded 40% representation in the next cabinet of President Muhammadu Buhari. And in a communique, after you had ethnic youth leaders, Lawyers Limited for Democracy, and as well as National Youth Council meeting in Abuja, they demanded that the Ministry of Sports and Youth should be handled by a person not more than 35 years old. They have other shopping lists. They say youth should be appointed as Minister of State to understudy the workings of government from the senior ministers. And therefore, they call for a halt in Ruga settlement until consultation and clarifications are made as a final solution to farmers' clashes. They also resolved that in spite of controversies surrounding the 2019 general elections, it was an improvement over 2015. They applauded the resort to petition at the tribunal and enjoined the parties to adhere to the final verdict of the court. So the youths are here ready to lead. They have stopped running. They are now prepared to lead.
Yeah, I think a couple of them have also been elected as speakers of State House of Assembly.
Specifically Kwara, Plateau, and Sokoto.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as per the request, I'm sure the elders will say, we have heard you. Okay, let's take a look at the Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust, below the nameplate, it also has a story. It says, Sambo replaces Yusuf as NHIS boss. That's page 5. Plateau and Bauchi governors back Ruga settlement project, page 3. Pressure mounts for recapitalization and funding of discos. That's page 17. Lead story says with a kicker, Buhari's cabinet, DSS clears 21 nominees as National Assembly resumes today. Uncertainty over principal officers. That's the say of the National Assembly. And then right at the foot of the front page, 3 headlines. Groom, 7 wedding guests lynched in Adamawa. That's a sad one, page 6. And court orders forfeiture of Princess Jonathan's $8.4 million, 9.2 billion naira to the federal government, page 6. Minimum wage. Workers prepare for showdown.
Okay, let's just rush through the Nigerian pilot before Bayo comes in. Below the nameplate of Nigerian pilot, Pandef warns federal government over proposed Ruga settlement and cattle colony. That's on page 9. And now the lead story, fire. That's the kick. Over 30 killed in Benue tanker inferno, 60 hospitalized. And below the photo story, nationwide strike looms over minimum wage. Koza Pastor Biodu Fatoyimbo steps down after rape allegations on page 13. We are constrained over non-disclosure of election finances. INEC raises alarm. It's on page 42. Patience Jonathan loses 9.2 billion to federal government as court orders final forfeiture of monies. Bala emergence, a victory for democracy. Bauchi peoples is a media chieftain on page 9. How fraudsters use First Bank to dupe job seekers is on page 30. PDP to National Assembly. Probe Buhari over corruption and insecurity. That's on page 8. And now at the foot of the Nigerian pilot, election fraud. Tribunal gives Atiku 10-day deadline to prove case against Buhari and the APC. That's on page 8. Maybe I will take it over so you can do the final analysis. Now, editorial is from the Sun newspaper. It's Sun newspaper, and it's all about attacks on Nigerians in Ghana and Togo. The controversy arose from the forcible closure of 50 spare parts shops owned by Nigerians in Kumasi following violent protests by indigenous Ghanaian spare parts dealers who alleged that Nigerian traders were flouting the laws governing retail marketing in their country. And I believe that's also the same case with Togo. Bayo.
Yes. Yes, indeed. But let's start with the story that the two of you read. That is about the threatening of strike by trade union side. The trade union side is the union of public service in the federal system as well as 36 states of the federation. They were threatening because they said the Joint Services Negotiation Council for the minimum wage is foot dragging on reaching a decision on the minimum wage. They said that they lament that the committee on consideration their judgment is curtailing all the initiative by government. Since the minimum wage was increased by 66.6%, they demanded 66.6% across board from grade level 1 to 17. But government said the wage bill will be too high, and therefore they reviewed it downwards and they said that from level 7 to 14, there will be an increase of 30%, and from level 15 to 17, an increase of 25%. The government side offered 9.5% for level 7 to 14, while level 15 to 17, they offered 5% increase. And the two parties agreed that, okay, these two proposals should go to negotiation. But by the time they came to negotiation, they said, government side argued that they cannot go beyond the provisions that has been made in the 2019 budget. And this is why they are threatening that they may be forced to go on strike. The issue of the editorial is becoming a matter of recurrent decimal about Nigerians being assaulted outside this country. And particularly, Honorable Abike Dabiri has always made it categorically clear that Nigerians, wherever they are as visitors and visiting other nations, are not above the law. They must abide by the laws of those countries. However, where they abide by the law, Nigerians should not be harassed or harangued unnecessarily. And this is the reason why she took the pains to visit the Ghana High Commission in Nigeria here, as well as the Togolese ambassador. And it was because of the report that 50 Nigerian shops have been shut in Kumasi, one of the commercial capital in the Ashanti region of Ghana. Already it is said that President Nana Akufo-Addo has directed that something should be done about it to stem the rising crisis. And the ambassador for Togolese in Nigeria has assured the Honorable Abike Dabiri that such things will not occur in Togo. However, we must also raise the concern that our compatriots must abide by the law of wherever they are. When you're in Rome, do as Romans do.
But what are the assurances that there will be no reoccurrence? Because we have already recorded a number of such incidents, not just in Togo and Ghana, but also in South Africa and the other African countries. Yet we play the big brother role, you know, in Africa as a nation. And as a matter of fact, our foreign policy is centered on Africa. Yes. So we wonder why Nigerians will be molested. We're talking about retailing in Ghana, for instance. If we have their cause, right, and if the ECOWAS position is that Nigerians should not go into retail businesses in other ECOWAS countries, then that's the point. But if that's not the case, there's no reason to close people's shops.
Well, it's the second time it's coming up. The first time was some regulation about the kind of business foreigners can go into. And they found out that it was in clash with the ECOWAS protocol of free movement and the part of the protocol that allows people to settle in and do legitimate business. In fact, a Nigerian professor has been sacked at the Winneba University for expressing some opinion, and the argument is that he should be paid his due entitlement.
Okay, Baya Toyebe, thank you for being around. We'll see you again tomorrow. All right, it's Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll be dealing with the Ruga Settlement Initiative.
They are there at the crack of dawn. They are there busy preparing while we rise for our day. They are there silently, guarding, waiting, listening, and watching. They are there ready in the sky above and the waters below, in the blistering heat of the day, in the dead of night, willing, indefatigable, determined in the defense of the sovereignty of our country. They are our first line of defense and our last. They who have paid the ultimate price in defending us. They are fathers and uncles. They are mothers and sisters and girlfriends and boyfriends. They are brothers and cousins and best friends and neighbors. They are classmates, colleagues, and citizens of this nation. They are our defenders and deserve our respect, our prayers, our thoughts. Nigeria, please support our armed forces. Our country is filled with people with different skills. And like the game football, we all have a position to play. And the strikers, they are the go-getters. They break barriers and steal the show. To win, we must come together as one team. We must play as Nigeria united.
One football confederation, 24 teams, 6 stadiums, 4 cities, 504 African stars, 1 trophy. The Africa Cup of Nations Egypt 2019 comes alive from June 21 with the showpiece final on July 19, 2019. Watch the 52 matches of the tournament live on Africa's biggest and largest television network, NTA, in partnership with Hot Sports. Be part of the biggest soccer fiesta in the African continent as the Super Eagles go on a bold mission to clinch the prestigious title for the 4th time, to the excitement of millions of fans across the length and breadth of Nigeria. For inquiries, please contact Abubakar on 0803-331-0175 and Felix on 0803-308-2375. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
services on the right channel gives you an edge over your competitors. NTA News 24 has all the platforms for your target audience. The station is on DSTV channel 419, GoTV channel 46, StarTimes channel 101, and Free TV channel 703. With our digital format and wide range, we can reach your customers in next to no time. We are eager to promote your business, goods, and services. So, partner with us for a very rewarding business experience. For more information, please call Henry on 0803-379-0884 or visit our office at NTA Headquarters, Area 11, Garki, Abuja. NTA News 24. News and more news.
To start our conversation on the subject matter, let's take this background report by Aisha Ubali.
The farmers and herders conflict is an age-long issue that has been a source of concern to many Nigerians. And these conflicts have caused loss of lives of innocent Nigerians and destruction of property. Determined to end the incessant clashes, the federal government initiated programs and policies targeted at ways to ensure peaceful coexistence among the two parties, with a view to enhancing agricultural production through diversification. And this diversification plan in the agricultural sector is to boost all facets of production, from animal husbandry, fishing to large-scale farming. But this might not be achievable without peaceful resolution of these conflicts. As part of efforts to resolve the conflict, the 8th National Assembly enacted law to create cattle ranches, but it was kicked against, and the problem persists. And this prompted the federal government to initiate another measure tagged Ruga settlement. The scheme is among other objectives to bring sanity in animal husbandry business, as well as curb farmer herders clashes.
The president has not imposed that on any state. It was voluntary. And they said any state that is prepared to do that to address the issue of insecurity in his state should come out and apply. So some of the states applied and were at the level of the pilot scheme. And some mischief makers will start bringing terms to cause confusion. To cause confusion in the country is very, very unfortunate. This is a policy that we felt that it is not only for the economic sense, but it's also going to address insecurity. And so if it's going to address this insecurity in the period of zero security that we have in the nation, then federal government will come and assist for those who want to do it. They are not imposing it on any state. Goodluck Jonathan did it, and he budgeted billions. He budgeted how many billions? About 10 billion. But we didn't see the money. If he had done that at that time, we would not be fighting insecure herdsmen farmers today. So all this concept that is coming, I think, with due apology to those who are bringing the confusion, they should allow us to move and address this problem of farmers' herdsmen crisis once and for all.
According to the president, the plan is to settle animal farmers in an organized place with the provision of basic amenities and manufacturing facilities to add value to the meat. Still, the initiative generated mixed reactions by Nigerians. For now, only 12 states have keyed into the initiative, while others view it as a way to take over their land. But the federal government made it clear that the scheme is voluntary. So why the hue and cry over the latest initiative? What would be the best way to end the farmers' herders conflict? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will address the issues shortly.
Aisha Obali with that background report. We do appreciate that. And now we have guests for the program this morning, and they're all with us here in Abuja. We have first Professor Hamidu Sharubutu. He is a professor of medicine and former provost, Federal College of Animal Health. Prof, you're welcome to the program.
Good morning, Nigerian. Good morning, Nigerians.
Thank you. We also have here with us a regular face on this show, Professor Garba Shehu. He's a senior special assistant to the president on media and publicity. So you're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
All right. To other guests we will introduce in the meantime will be Dr. Olaniran Alabi. Dr. Alabi is Director and Chief Vet Officer of Nigeria in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. Dr. Alabi, a pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Also here in the studios with us is the President, Ranch Owners Association of Nigeria, Shitu Mohammed Kabir. A pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Gentlemen, you're welcome to the program. We have a very important and sensitive topic this morning with respect to, of course, what has been happening across the nation. Now, let me begin with Garba Shehu. At the initial stage of the escalation of herders-farmers conflict across the nation, what came to mind was ranching, and that resonated among Nigerians and, of course, people at the government circle. This time, we are now talking about Ruga. What does this one mean?
Well, it is true that there loomed that initial consensus nationwide that ranching was the way forward. I think that politics has come into all of these things, and that between Ruga and ranching, there is no difference. It's just a matter of semantics. And interestingly, you realize that states in the country that are most vocal in opposing this Ruga scheme, some of them have enacted laws, open grazing laws that prescribe a solution that says ranching should be it. Curiously, the government of Nigeria says, okay, so let's go, let's do ranching. The fact that somebody has used a name other than the one they have written in their laws, difference between this one says 6, the other person says half a dozen. And then all of this confusion. But again, there's nothing that doesn't feed politics in this country. That's where we are today.
Well, Dr. Olaniran Alabi, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development is said to be the arrowhead for the implementation of the Ruga scheme. What is it all about?
Yeah, thank you very much. In addition to what the special advisor to the president have said, the Ruga initiative was something that the ministry came up with, and this was presented at the National Council on Agriculture and Rural Development, which is the highest policy-making body on agri matters in the country, and it was endorsed at that meeting. And the council is made up of all commissioners of agri from all the 36 states of the federation, including the FCT. And we said this is a voluntary initiative, and states that are interested should indicate interest. And we also attach some conditions. If you indicate interest, these are the minimum requirements that you must fulfill before you are considered. And the objective really is to address this farmers-herders conflict by establishing settlements, where we provide the basic infrastructures that will reduce the movement of the herders. And it's open to all Nigerians. It's not restricted to only cattle herders. All we want is indicate interest, meets the requirement, and then we consider it.
What are those requirements?
One of the requirements is for you to indicate that you are interested, and then you go back in your state, within your state, identify lands, right? Places where these settlements can be built.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the president of Ranch Owners Association of Nigeria. Now, you're already in ranching. That's what I understand by this position, right? And in your opinion, if ranching is expanded, to the point where many states are now involved, would it to any reasonable extent, solve the problem of herders, farmers clashes?
Thank you. If this program take off, I started this program when a visionary leader of Bayelsa State, Dixon, in 2016 had this problem with herders. He appointed me as chairman of Cattle Ranch Management and Control of Bayelsa State in 2017, and were inaugurated. There were problems then. By the time we got some area and put cattle ranch together, and then be able to now call stakeholders meeting, the problem up till date, from 2017, go and look at statistics, to date that I'm talking to you, you will not hear herders, farmers clash, or any problem with Fulanis or any other ranchers within Bayelsa State. So if you take from that opportunity and we come to the national, if you put up this ranch, not only security problem that it will solve. One, if you have been able to bring these people together and tell them, look, if there's ranch in Zone A, and you say, we want you, as you enter Abuja, take your cow to Zone A. There you are provide grass, you are provide water, you are provide veterinary center, and then you even put abattoir. And this ranch will turn to be an economic zone of any state that adopt it. Let me give you one simple example. If you plant grass, it is the youth of the state that you will employ to plant those grass, gamba grass, any other legume that you grass. The youth will be the planter and they will be making money from it. Secondly, if you put up abattoir, in that abattoir, one, it will help the state to have hygienic meat. And then you'll be able to also earn revenue and employ your youth. And thirdly, you will see that if you have a ranch in a state, as soon as they are coming from any state, as they enter your state, they go to that ranch. One, you'll be able to take their picture, you have their ID card. Two, if a state today is been able to put up 1 million cow in a ranch, and you are taking only 2,000 per month for that cows to be there, 2,000 naira times 1 million cow, you are earning 2 billion naira. If you are taking 2 billion naira as a state, just for, you will see that state will start competing to have 5-10 million cows. And if you have 2-5 million cows, that means you can even generate 20 to 30 million. You've created employment, you've created hygienic center, you've created security, you've earned income from this, and you find out you said to your people, there will be no crisis any longer. And you turn your state into industrial zone. That state, you can put up fertilizer processing plant there. That is organic fertilizer through their manuals. Secondly, you can also have skin and hide within that ranch, where all these shoemakers can come. Our military hardwares, especially the shoes and belts, will not be buying from outside the country again. That means before you notice, in the next 5-10 years, that area will turn into industrial zone. Yeah, that's why they call it cash cow. Nothing inside cow, from the horn to tongue to the meat, that is not. You can export meat. There are countries like Botswana that depend solely on a ranch, and that is what they make money from. The Argentinians, the Brazilians. When you talk of cowboys in America, they are one of the richest American boys. They are ranchers. Mm. So it will help the country. We should look at the advantage that this will give to the country. Not why should we something that will develop and put industry and put food at the table of our masses when we have youth unemployed everywhere. This is area that will take a lot of youth out of street, and then people will start competing.
Alhaji Shitu Mohammed Kabir, thank you very much for your opening comments. So we'll return to you. Incidentally, we have a fifth guest who is joining this conversation. We'd like to introduce him now. He's Chuks Akamadu. He's a community leader. He's also a lawyer. Chuks Akamadu, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria. Thanks for having me.
All right. Just before we come to you, let's bring it again. Professor Garuba Sharabutu, of course, who's been a guest on Good Morning Nigeria. In the past, whenever we were discussing issues relating to farmers, herders, the clashes, and how to mitigate those clashes. Here we are. And by the way, Shitu Kabir was talking about Botswana relying solely on meat export for their forex revenue. They also depend on tourism and diamond mining. Those are major sources of forex for them. Professor Sharabutu, now, let's take the benefit of your knowledge and experience. Tell us, what is the Ruga concept from what has been disclosed so far? And how is the Ruga concept different from a ranch? Or how is it similar to a ranch? How is it similar or dissimilar to grazing reserve? Or the grazing routes that, you often talked about in the past. So, grazing reserves, grazing routes, ranch, and Ruga.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, before I jumped into that question, there are certain questions that are pertinent that we should be able to answer. And the question here is, what are we really afraid of? Are we afraid of the cattle, afraid of the herders, or afraid of terminologies? Because if you go through the social media and commentators, you'll find out that these are the things we are really afraid of. You see, there is no way these three concepts or words cannot be used anytime you are looking at the development of the livestock industry. You can never have cattle without herders. It's not possible, because they will be roaming around without anybody controlling them. At the same time, you cannot have a herder without cattle, because if he's a herder and he does not have cattle, he drives himself into all forms of criminalities, because his source of livelihood is not there. Now, these terminologies are not just evolving, because from time immemorial, as far back as 1903, we have had this concept of trying to see what we can do to improve our sources of livelihood. And as a result of that, cattle from 1903 became a source of revenue to the government. And that's the more reason why, when diseases were trying to wipe out the cattle, the British government then, through colonialism, came in and decided to protect our animal resources. And it kept on continuing. And when the government found out, the colonial government found out that these animals were roaming from one place to the other, that was when they now started introducing the terminologies of where is the Hurumi, that the cattle settlement center, where is the grazing reserve, so that whatever their activities are will continue to move within a certain direction without them straying to go and maybe destroy farmland. But that led to the concept of, as we get more population of these cattle, as the population continues to grow, and then the movement became, so rampant, the same government introduced what they call the Fulani Amenity Program. It was a program of the federal government, and the aim of that program was to provide facilities for these herdsmen to find a way of settling. As at that time, we were thinking, or what was happening there was that it was only the Fulani person that is rearing cattle. Eventually, for me, that I'm coming from Plateau State, for example, there is no ethnic group on the plateau that does not have livestock. Some much more than that. I have conducted research. If you go to Eyetoro, you will never believe, apart from the intonation and the physique of a Fulani man, you will never believe that that zone is not in the north. Eyetoro, for example, in Ogun State. If you go to Shaki area, you will find out that there are numerous Fulani people that are staying that way. And their cattle are much more. And they know the benefit. The government of that state knows the benefit of these people there. So what is Ruga, for example? Ruga is a temporary settlement for a Fulani person, not permanent. It's not a permanent one, because by way of their livelihood, they move from one place to the other. So that's when they say, where are you going to? We're going to Ruga. Ruga means where they are going to settle temporarily, get whatever is there, and so they construct their huts and move. Then a grazing reserve is a government reserve area, gazetted, that is meant to take care of these animals with provision of facilities, livestock serving centers, grasses, and all the rest. That is what a grazing reserve is. Then you have the cattle route. that we are trying to run away from. But as population comes, encroachment keeps on going, insecurity. The government of the day, as at that time, now started thinking, how can we take care of this problem? And what is the problem? The problem is just an issue of crisis, eating of the crops and all this. And everybody knows in this country that before now, even traditional rulers were capable of solving the simple problem of the cattle rearers and farmers. It was a very simple thing. But because population was growing, the weather is becoming so terrible because of climate change and all the rest. There's migration of these animals. And by the way, movement is inevitable, even for human beings. If you are looking for source of food, you move from your house to a restaurant. You cannot stay in one place. Grazing is a terminology for how the animal actually eats its food. When you call that of human being feeding, grazing is the process by which you eat grass. Animals eat grass. So that is what grazing is all about. But let me say this, and for us to really imbibe this, there is virtually no difference between what you call Ruga and what you call a ranch. It's a farmhouse that is meant for the Fulani people to do that. Even when you look at the grazing reserve laws, go to Borno grazing reserve law, go to Yobe grazing reserve law, if you read the subject matter, the content of that law, economic trees are not even part of it. Hills are not part of it. Rivers are not part of it because these are natural endowment that belongs to traditional people of that area. So nobody will go and tell you this is a farm settlement and then install a chief. And a typical example is this. If you go to Jos, for example, you have what we call mechanic village. That does not mean that a village has been established there. The mechanic village does not have either a Yoruba man or an Igbo man that is a traditional ruler in that Jos governing that area. So it's about the same thing. But what I'm saying here is this, that from one state to the other, we must be very careful with the terminologies we are going to use, because I think that is the key thing. Yeah. If, for example, Bauchi says they want Ruga because they want to use the terminology to convince the Fulani people to accept that. In Plateau State, we are using, for example, ranch. And if you look at even the so-called controversial law in Benue State, I went through that law. There is nothing really, apart from the harsh condition that is spelled out for you to obtain land. There is nothing really harsh about it. It's a question of, it is the same whether you call it Ruga or ranching system that you are trying to adopt. So my advice to Nigerians is, don't look at the terminology negatively. Get a copy of the document that says this is what we want to do. And then we use that to educate people, rather than us sitting down and we keep on flying words all over the place. You say colonial, you reject it. You say ranch, you reject. You say grazing, you reject. When are we going to solve this problem?
Professor Hamidu Shaributu, you've raised a very, very interesting points here, which if we find time, we could dissect, further. But right now, let's go to Chuksa Akamadu, who is a legal practitioner and, of course, a community leader, which means that as a community leader, your community must have one or two things to do with the Fulanese in your areas. He's from Ohoho, and that's Umuahia. Am I right?
Yes.
All right. Now,
where's the place?
Ohoho in Umuahia.
Okay.
All right. Now, why do you... Okay, what is the legal implication of this Ruga or ranching system that's about to come on board? What are people afraid of, as Professor Shaributu raised earlier on, in your opinion as a community leader?
Well, I do not see the legal implication that much. Rather, I see the socio-political angle, in the sense that, as far as I know, the federal government has made it voluntary. The federal government isn't compelling anybody to subscribe to the Ruga Settlement Initiative. If a state is interested, well, the state is welcomed. If a state is not interested, there is no compulsion on the part of any state. But again, I think we should also dig deeper into all of this. It exposes the fault lines that we have as a country, and then the mutual suspicion that assails us as a nation.
I really do not see why this much dust should have been raised at all. I don't understand it. But again, you find that it now reveals the temperament of the average Nigerian. How lightly we take issues of peaceful cohabitation. I don't understand why the man in the north does not feel the pains of the man in the south. I do not see why the Southerners should hastily reject, condemn this whole thing just because it has to do with the Fulani person, and vice versa. We as a people should begin to realize that nation building requires the input of everyone. We need to consider ourselves as key stakeholders in building this nation. We must live in peace. Even if there are differences here and there, of course, they obtain elsewhere. There's no perfect nation in the world. But I am of the opinion that every sector, every stratum of the society should begin to see itself as a critical stakeholder and help in their respective ways to see that we build unity, we build peaceful coexistence, we build national stability and all of that. Yes, government on its part, I think, also has some blame to share here. I do not think that when it comes to information dissemination, that government really understands the diverse sentiments of the Nigerian people as regards our religious diversity and ethnic diversity and all of that. I think the National Orientation Agency should look at issues like this and begin to see how government policies and programs can be better communicated. Because if you really look at this thing, you won't see anything why there is an uproar about this whole thing. Do you subscribe to Ruga Settlement Initiative? If yes, then you adopt it. If no, so why are we bothered about something that the federal government has made voluntary? And it's now looking like, oh, the whole idea was to set the country ablaze.
What are they afraid of? What, in your opinion, what are they afraid of for those governors, especially in the southern part of the country that said no to that? What do you think they are afraid of? There must be something.
You see, I mentioned mutual suspicion. Well, there is mutual suspicion. We don't need it. This is our country. We really need to understand Nigeria to be ours. Nigeria is like a roof. If it's a roof, let us not be doing things that would amount to removing the zinc, the sheets of zinc one after another. Because by the time the zinc is totally off, all of us will be vulnerable. Nobody will be safe at all. So we must attack whatever it is that gives rise to such spontaneous reaction to an otherwise harmless initiative of government, because this is mutually unhelpful. It doesn't help the people, it doesn't help the government. Like I said earlier, the government itself should communicate better. Go the extra mile of taking the sensitivities of the respective ethnic nationalities in the country into consideration. Then the people on their own should also realize that they have a role to play in making sure that Nigeria moves forward, prospers to the benefit of all.
All right. Chooks Akamadu, thank you very much there for your comments. But let's bring in again Malam Garba Shehu. I mean, Chooks has talked about the fact that, according to him, the government should communicate better. Earlier, Professor Shaributu asked the question, what are people afraid of? He referenced what has also been in the social media. I mean, we have seen millions of messages on the social media. Persons have talked about this has been a potential land grab, you know, made reference to what happened in Zango, Qatar in 1987 and how expansionism, you know, then grew and so on and so forth. That Chooks talks about mutual suspicion. Kabir here says, look, no, we have a potential cash cow, let's not kill the cow, and so on and so forth. So from the government perspective, how is it responding to all of these reactions, as it were, the melange of reactions in the social media to a policy that it has been very well defended in some quarters?
Well, you're putting so much into this. And let me say that, you know, the social media represents a peculiar problem for all nations, including Nigeria. And so therefore, you know, that is a challenge that is. I think that what is foremost in all of the things we are seeing is that there's deliberate mischief by sections of the leadership, political leadership in the country, to create social disharmony and to gain from all of that. In this country, we all know it. Some politicians, without much to offer by way of projects or policy, they ride on very dangerous cleavages, such as ethnicity and these divisive things. And then they win elections. And so therefore, when they win, they will not like this, some of this is to die off. No, they will continue to ride the tiger until finally, maybe they end up in its stomach. But otherwise, look, this is a country that has a special program, for example, rice growers, palm oil producers, cocoa producers. Government is moving sectorally, attacking problems that affect or undermine the country's development in key sectors of agriculture. So what is wrong with tackling problems in animal husbandry? What is wrong in modernizing? So, as I said, really my view is that politics, there is a dangerous mix of politics and the mischief in all of these things. Otherwise, there is nothing absolutely that should confuse anyone about. I am saying to you that a governor that himself has signed a law and is implementing it in the state that says that cows must be ranched in my state, and that I, as governor, will be the one, when you meet all conditions, I will approve for you to set up ranch. In another state says the governor will set up a committee that will approve when ranches meet all of these conditions. And then because the federal government now comes in to say, we want to do this. And everybody is saying, no, 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 we are not going to be a part of it. So, well, the thing is that you can see that the government appears determined. It's not as if it is adamant or insensitive, because if government was insensitive, it would have gone, they have talked about the land available to government. The cattle routes and all of that had been there, gazetted. As it is at the moment, more than 3 million hectares of such land. But the government is saying, no, we want to respect the sensibilities of Nigerians. We're not going to touch or go into that land. All we are saying is, state governments, you come forward. If you wish to be a part of this process, apply, meet these conditions, and let's do business with you. And as we said, a dozen of such states have come forward. They want to do it. I tell you, the day will come. Any state that refuses to log in, to tag in on this, they will bite their finger. They will regret depriving, the history writers will record it, that you, Mr. ABC, as governor, this important development in the country came, you denied us. It will be said.
Malagari Bashir, let me remain with you. Well, let's reach some other critical issues concerning all of this. Because Akamadu talked about mutual suspicion. Professor Sharabutu talked about what are they afraid of. Yeah. Let's face the fact. Growing up as a young man, over 50 years ago, I have always seen some settlements in some hills. If you go to farm, you see some little settlements of Fulanese, you know, the hamlets. No, as a matter of fact, if you move like 3-4 kilometers from my village, right, you see some settlements till date. Right. But in recent years, there appear to be some criminal elements among the herders. Perhaps we believe that many of them came from outside Nigeria, as the case may be. And in some of those communities, people don't go to farms anymore. They're afraid of rape or kidnap and what have you. So that might be the fear of not just the government of the states that are saying it, but the communities that will own the lands where the people will settle. So how can this aspect be addressed in terms of, because in every sector of life, there are criminals, there are bad persons. Exactly. Right. So exactly. How would that be addressed?
Well, as I said, I think that there is need for responsibility in leadership. Look, as we said a short while ago, that criminality exists with every community, with every religion, with every nation. So to now associate, generalize with certain ethnic groups, yes, there are bad elements among Fulani, herders, kidnapping, and all of this are being reported. The dangerous thing about what is happening is the tendency to generalize and blame Fulani for every criminal act that happens. And this is fueling the suspicion. Why there is need for responsibility is because when we learn from experiences of countries such as Rwanda, this is what led to all of the ethnic cleansing that people saw. As a matter of fact, as we speak now, there are places where a Fulani cannot go, even in northern Nigeria, not to talk of south. In marketplaces, there have been reports that innocent people are attacked on the basis of their ethnic identity. That's a very dangerous thing for the country. Look, this country's leaders and citizens, we have a responsibility. We read our constitution. The constitution prescribes freedom of movement for every citizen and residency. In fact, ECOWAS, outside this, Nigeria has signed on livestock and the human beings can live and move and settle in any part of West Africa without any form of discrimination or restriction. But because there is a tunnel vision in a lot of community leaderships in the country, they think that the whole world begins and ends around their little settlements, and they're not looking at. Otherwise, get out of ECOWAS or look at the constitution, revise it if you don't want it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Madam Garbasho. Let's bring in, I know, Professor Shaributu, you are itching to say something. I was going to ask Dr. Alabi a question, but let's get your response.
Yeah, you see, actually why I wanted to intervene there is when he mentioned the criminal element. You see, when you fail to invest in the development of somebody's trade, you push him out of that trade. And eventually, once he has no means of livelihood, it becomes a problem to the whole country. Like we have mentioned all the processes that the government has gone through in order to make sure that the livestock sector is developed. It has not developed. Because here you are talking about a Fulani family that initially has about 1,000 cattle. He has 10 children, for example. And then that means at inheritance, because that is their source, he has about 100. Now another generation comes. This 100, he has 10. That means each one will begin to have 10. And at the end of it, with cost of living and everything, eventually he finds out that before the father even dies, he has no cattle at all. And his only trade that he understands is staying in the bush and rearing cattle. So he goes into all forms of criminality. These are some of the things that brought it. Now, if the government is saying, look, we want to enhance this threat, that means every Fulani family, if you want to zero it on them, every Fulani family will now begin to say, this is it. Now, for those that have been arrested through kidnapping in Plateau State, I can tell you very seriously that it involves Fulani, it involves the so-called indigenous people of the state. In fact, the criminality is incubated by the indigenes, by relations of people, and then the Fulani man becomes the implementer of the kidnapping. That is the record. If you go through the police record, this is what we see. This is our own experience. Yes. So, but why I'm saying this is that for you to actually curtail the criminality, I have mentioned it here times without number, and it seems the government does not seem to see the direction we are going in. If the policeman is restricted to the village or to the town, the soldiers are in the town, the civil defense are in the town, virtually every law enforcement agent in this country wants to stay within the confines of the town. Criminality takes place in the bush, and you have nobody to police the bush. Nobody understands the terrain in the bush. You will never introduce anything, you will never stop criminality unless you have a mechanism where you monitor the bush. Riches are not just in the town. There are riches in the bush. We have our forests, we have our trees, we have our mineral resources, we have wild animals, and these are unattended to by any other organization. In Kenya, for example, you have the rangers. These rangers understand through GIS, they will be able to trace. So when you pick anybody in Kenya or India, for example, into the bush, they will be able to trace and find out where you are because there are experts there. Why is the government running away?
Well, Professor Shaributu, you recall we had you on the program when we discussed the idea again of resuscitating forest rangers. Exactly. But nobody knows what has come of that since the last conversation we had, probably about 2 years or so ago, when this crisis was picking up. But Dr. Alabi from the Federal Ministry of Agri, back to you. Under the Ruga concept, who will be entitled to settle in such an environment, or who will be entitled to operate in such an environment? And what is the proposed governance framework for such a settlement?
Okay, thank you very much. Before I answer your question, I also want to add to what Prof said, that you remember I mentioned that there will be provision of infrastructures and other facilities in the Ruga settlement. One of the infrastructure and facilities that will be provided includes the agro rangers that will provide security. Is included in the Ruga concept. So back to your question. Like I said, the Ruga concept is actually for animal headers, irrespective of, not restricted to only Fulanis, right? The bottom line for us is for the interested state to identify, indicate their interest in the project, and then tell us this is where we want to site this project. That must have been after due stakeholders' engagement among the communities concerned. That would be for the state.
I'm wondering, Dr. Alabi, again, we have to reference the social media and the kinds of sentiments that have been expressed. It was expressed here and in such a environment. I asked the question, who will be entitled to settle in? Now, some persons have argued that because some groups or ethnic groups are more affiliated to animal husbandry, that it's an attempt, therefore, to bring them from Central and West Africa to come and settle in Nigeria. You know, that's, I'm sure you must have read that. Yeah. So that's why, again, I asked the question, what is the governance framework? How will you identify who a Nigerian is? Is Nigerian government not going to be responsible for headers from Kenya, you know, the Maasai, from Central Africa, where you have the, who, as a Nigerian, will be entitled, you know, to be in a Ruga?
Yeah. I seem to know much about this because...
but it's also a director. All right, yes. But let's listen to you. Yes.
You see, when we started this program, initially with the issue of National Livestock Transformation Agenda. And the National Livestock Transformation Agenda was, you know, an implementation of, you know, the decision of the National Economic Council. Now, when it came to that level, there is already a governance structure that has been, right from the beneficiaries. What a state is expected to do is to form a state livestock transformation program. They will be responsible for knowing how to govern this structure. Of course, the national one is under the office of the vice president. Now, we are not bringing a program that will run in isolation with what the Ministry of Agriculture is going to do. There is supposed to be a synergy. Now, at that level, anybody, the state is expected to do a census of intended ranchers, would-be ranchers. Now, these are the people that are going to benefit from such facilities. So, whether you are a Yoruba man, you are an Igbo man, you are a Hausa man, a Muslim or a Christian, once you show intention, it becomes, well, you don't call it a right, but it becomes a privilege.
What about those that come from outside Nigeria?
No, you see, the issue there is that there will be no accommodation, because once you register people that are resident within that environment, there is no way you are now going to allow people. Because eventually, sir, the people will take ownership.
When that is adopted,
yes,
will that now stop the ECOWAS protocol that allows...
On transhumans.
You remember that we were here on the issue of the ECOWAS protocol. And we are upgrading the ECOWAS protocol. In fact, the presidency had initiated this meeting of ECOWAS to also try and look at the peculiarities of the Nigerian situation. And that is on the pipeline. The ECOWAS protocol is not going to be adopted as if it's... No, there is already a move to actually see what we are going to do in order to limit some of the clauses that does not favor the country. That is there.
Okay, Professor Sharabutu, let's pause you in the meantime. Back again to Dr. Olaniro Alabi. I asked the question about the governance framework. Yes. Governance framework, relates to how the place will operate, who can come in, who will have a right, who will collect taxes, and so on and so forth. If there are foreigners, what is the identity management? Because under the ECOWAS protocol on transhumance, people can come in, but there are guidelines for them to leave their point of origin, say Niger Republic, and come into Nigeria. You take their data, and when they are coming back again, you also take their data of themselves and their livestock. So how does the Ruga settlement fit into all of this under the proposed governance arrangement?
Yes, I was actually trying to answer that. What I said, the state government, right, the federal government is providing this support to the state government. The state government are the ones that will identify the location and the beneficiary communities within that location. We are not doing it for foreigners to come and settle. You understand? This is for the benefit of the local animal producers.
No, I'm sorry. Let's clarify this again. Yeah. I'm sorry. Okay. Professor Sharabutu, I mean, you've been involved in this. When you say it's for the benefit of the local communities or the local farmers, we don't know. Herders are not necessarily local people. I mean, it's part of their culture to be nomadic, in a sense. So they can come in from all parts. So, and then one generation will go over to another generation. Are you going to have a static settlement, or is it a settlement that will be dynamic?
You know, the key issue here is settlement. The key issue is to restrict that movement. So the issue of people coming in there does not arise. And that's the more reason why the federal government decided to come in order to regulate all other things. Because the component of the federal government coming in has to do with getting the immigration, facilities also available to make sure that people do not move from one place to the other. In fact, if you look at it, that is why the Almajiri concept is also coming in to restrict this type of movement. So it is not something that is just going to, I have provided a ranch, you can now move. Even between local governments, there must be monitoring of people moving from one place to the other. And in fact, the package there is says, look, there must be produce market. Where are you taking your animals even for you to go and sell? That is to restrict movement of people. So you cannot be seeing with your animals on the street just moving from one place to the other. Even your market must be identified.
Can I answer that? In addition, if you remember what the president said, this settlement, is going to have all those complements that will restrict the movement of animals. And for us, we also is something that will also assist us in disease control and promotion of public health. As you know, that there are a lot of animal diseases that are transmitted to humans. When you allow this unrestricted movement, it's also a problem for us as veterinarians. But when we are able to confine them in a location, we are able to effectively control animal diseases and also identify and prevent those diseases that are likely to be transmitted to human beings.
Honestly speaking, from all indications and from submissions of our guests, Kinsley, I'm beginning to believe that the question you put about the governance framework has not actually been answered. Because the first AK-47 carrying herders we saw in this country were not Nigerians. How did they get in? We don't even have the necessary technological infrastructure to monitor the borders, let alone people who have adopted to living in the bush, who know all the tracks. As a matter of fact, some of the herders from other parts of the country know nooks and crannies more than we do as Nigerians. So that's going to be a big problem. The governance issue when it comes to ranting. Or if the protocol you say is in process, is in the pipeline, the protocol matter that will look at Nigeria's peculiarities. Right. And I wouldn't like to believe that ECOWAS will single out Nigeria because of our peculiarity and begin to, disrespect the protocol that has been signed over the years. So it's a very big issue. And that's why I want to bring in President of French Owners Association of Nigeria. In this connection, how can ranches be properly administered, considering the fact that we have West African brothers who might as well be like to be part of ranching? From your experience.
From our experience, when you put up these ranches, and whoever. And we should emphasize the issue of Fulanis, because ranch is not for only Fulani, it's for everybody. And from my own statistics, from what even when I'm in that Bayelsa state, you find out that the owners of cow around there are even from there. And there, when you are coming into a state, and you come in, already from where you are entering, you have been noticed that you have to go to so there's where the ranch is. And when you get to that ranch, first of all, they want to take your identity. They will take your identity, they will count your the stock you are bringing in. As you go in to graze, where you are taking your grass and all that, there are also people, workers that are servicing you on grasses. And then if you want to also sell your cow, we have cow market within that ranch. So you take it to the cow market. And from the cow market there, we don't even allow you now to take your cow to go and slaughter in your house any longer. We restrict you to say from that abattoir within the ranch there, you slaughter because of the hygienic and other, you slaughter your cow there. And then you have the veterinaries that within that look at your cow to say, okay, it's hygienic enough for it to be slaughtered. And then you see that there's value chain in this. And you see, you have already set the security, because the man that comes in, you had his identity. You have where he's coming from and what time he's leaving, because you identify, I will spend 2 months, I will spend 1 month, and then because you have to pay. It is not free. And that payment, that tax, goes to the state, because state is that own the ranch, not an individual. It is government that there may be, as he's saying, you can say, okay, the state takes so, maybe because federal government has invested in it, 50% go to state, 30% go to the federal or whatever structure you give to it. But what we know is that you must come into that ranch as you come in. You can be an Igbo man, it can be Yoruba man, it can be thief, it can be anybody. You have your cow, I have 10.
Who owns the ranch? Who owns the land?
The ranch is owned by the state, because it's only state that invested, that the power of land invested on. It's the state or the local government that they establish it.
How big is a ranch on the average? I mean, I asked that question to Professor Sharibu, you recall, 2 years ago. Yeah.
A ranch can be even 1 hectare. You can put a ranch. You can take a ranch to 1,000 to 5,000. That is why I tell you, sometimes, like when Wase Ranch was established by the colonial master in 1950s, Wase Ranch had over 2 million cows before independence. And that 2 million cows at that time, you can see the population. And Wase Ranch is up to about 5 to... Yes, and it's up to about 5 to...
Yeah, because some of the ranches you will find, for instance...
1,000 hectares.
Just a minute, sorry to interject. You will find in Southern Africa or in the US, you have wild animals. I mean, you recall, yes, wild animals. Former President Dick Cheney was in a private ranch when he was hunting, and he had the accident of shooting at... his fellow hunter. Just one point, so that we don't miss this. Earlier, Malangaba Shehu, in talking about public perception of the Ruga scheme, said, look, what we are dealing with here is most likely a dangerous mix of politics and mischief. Chuks Akamado, I'd like to return to you to say, look, how might this therefore be overcome? Against the background of the question also asked by Professor Sharabutu, that what are people afraid of? Let's say that, fine, if you see the typical herdsman is harmless. His features are Nigerian features, or our features are recognizable, but that some of the criminal elements who have been hiding behind them, when you see them, you look like these ones are not herdsmen, with an AK-49 or AK-47, and so on and so forth. And that has also been peddled in the social media, that some of those criminal elements have been used as a battering ram to soften up the populace so that it becomes easy for them to accept this proposal. That is part of the mischief and dangerous politics that we are seeing. How might this therefore be overcome for those states that are willing to key into the Ruga project?
Well, foremost, I think that at this point in time, Nigerians must look themselves in the face, look at one another in the face and tell one another the truth. The truth being that since independence, we've had this misfortune of successive governments enforcing national unity. And I guess that's why we've been doing this one step forward, two steps backwards. I think President Muhammad Buhari has a golden opportunity to write his name in the hearts of Nigerians by discarding this culture of enforcement of national unity and embrace a culture of promoting national unity. We need to promote unity amongst the constituent parts of this country. Let's de-emphasize enforcement of the... I guess perhaps it's because of the long years of military rule that we found it very attractive to always say, oh, we are one, and we must be one, and all of that. We must get to a point where we begin to persuade one another to voluntarily log onto the Nigerian dream. There has to be a Nigerian dream. We must find a soul for this nation for us to prosper. But to continually deceive ourselves will lead us nowhere. Because this will go a long way in checkmating the activities of politicians who take advantage of things like this to feather their political nest. If the average Nigerian is meant to understand that this is our project, and there is that right sense of co-ownership of the project, you will find that these things will begin to go down. Even the criminal elements who take advantage of all of these things to perpetuate criminal acts will find it very difficult because the patriots amongst them in the community will be the one checking them. If you look at what happened in a country like South Korea, for South Korea to overcome its economic challenges, they got to a point where they achieved the national consensus and they were like, oh, we must liberate ourselves. When they came up with some economic policies that insisted that they consume their products such as tobacco, come on, it was bad such that in a pub, if a South Korean saw a fellow citizen smoking imported tobacco, he would attack that person. Because he felt that the survival of their nation relied so much on their promoting and consuming their own goods and all of that. That is where I think Nigeria should begin to look into. We must find a way of co-owning the Nigerian project, agreeing that there is a Nigerian project, and all of us together, I'm very certain that we would overcome.
Yeah, very, very salient point you have made there, and of course, that has also opened up a lot of issues that concern unity of a nation like Nigeria. Of course, we find it extremely difficult to adopt to change. Yet, change is the only thing constant in life. That is one thing we have learned in Nigeria. But well, of course, as time goes on, we'll be able to learn more from other countries who have already applied certain policies that have brought them together. This is Good Morning Nigeria and the network service of the NTA. We are taking on a very important and sensitive matter this morning. But let's take a short break. When we return, we'll be gradually rounding off this edition of the program. Do stay with us.
Our country is filled with people with different skills. And like the game football, we all have a position to play. The midfielders are the ones who bring us together. They help us unleash our potential. To win, we must come together as one team. We must play as Nigeria United.
Do you desire to master new techniques and technologies of camera operations? Then you must attend NTA TV College special 4-week intensive course on modern camera operation techniques. The course is designed for cameramen in private and public television stations, ministries, departments, agencies, and faith-based organizations. Take advantage of the course to upgrade your professional skills in single and multi-camera operations within just 4 weeks. Also, a special course on intermediate online news reporting skills for journalists, multimedia producers, and freelance reporters will run concurrently
concurrently. Take advantage of NTA TV College's special 4-week course on online news reporting to upscale your capacity in computer-assisted reporting, social media content production strategies, online media platforms for dissemination of information, and much more. The venue for both courses is the serene and secure environment of NTA Television College, near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos, Plateau State. Date 8th July to 2nd August 2019. Course fee 100,000 naira only per participant. Accommodation inclusive. For more information, please call 0803-314-4383 or 0806-980-9807. NTA Television College, Jos, training you to be the best you want to be.
The red light won't kill you. Move now.
To they disobey traffic law, they cause accidents. Me, I don't talk, say, I no go dey do am again because change begins with me.
I will no longer endanger my life crossing the express. Instead, I will use the bridge because change begins with me.
Oga driver, stop this bus now, won't come down. I be one carry me past where they go.
Make I dey stop anyhow for road, they cause traffic wahala and accidents. So I go dey stop for the right bus stop because change begins with me.
Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Yeah, thanks for staying with us up to this moment. And it's about time for us to look at what Nigerians have been saying concerning the topic for this morning. Kinsley would like to begin. All right, yeah. Tweets coming in from our viewers. Badamasi H. Adamu has this tweet. The cacophony on this issue shows how heterogeneous and the mere geographical expression of the country is. The focus should be on implementation or the accountability of the funds, accountability for the funds set aside for this project. All right, Alhaji Musa Mohammed Hadeja, he says, let Ruga settlement be initiated like other tribes initiate plaza, guest inn, pharmaceutical shops, restaurants, and cultivate hectares of land at Fulani settlement, as every Nigerian has the right to move from one place to another and, of course, anywhere he or she wants. Festus Akimboye, Ruga initiative will be a hard sell in the southern part of Nigeria. But it makes sense for the states in the northern part of the country to embrace the initiative since they are more into cattle herding. All right, we have Abdul, yes. The Ruga settlement have been in existence from time immemorial. The unnecessary uproar about the Ruga settlement is defeatist and self-serving by opportunist leaders who have done nothing for their various states. Well, he continued, actually, yeah. Herders are contributing to the economic well-being of the country through the provision of livestock. It is therefore imperative for the government at all levels to ensure their well-being and the livestock they herd. Hence, the issue of Ruga settlement are imperative. Cecilia Koroma twists. Nigerians whip up tribal sentiments, even on issues that will be beneficial to us all as individuals. Nigerians, repent. Law Alpha C. The Ruga initiative has generated so much controversy and suspicion, no thanks to the accusations of colonization by notable leaders and statesmen of this great country. Ibrahim Tudu, honestly, the federal government information agencies should sit up. NOA, that's the National Orientation Agency, should come up with strategies to present government programs better. All right, now we have Bala Amos. The Ruga settlement initiative is going to be difficult because not all the Fulanis are Nigerians. It can only be possible if we know the number of Fulani herders we have in the country. I'm sorry, I don't have the next one. What I have here is coming from Festus Akimboye, okay. And his tweeting says, Ruga settlement should be localized rather than making it a national initiative, especially since there appears to be little or no trust. All right, Danladi Ndaiebo, the Ruga settlement initiative is a brilliant idea. Problem is the lack of a robust social engagement by the government. Enlightenment and awareness program on the initiative could have saved the government this embarrassment. Government must communicate its programs better. Emeka Osai, Ruga is not new in Nigeria. As I'm talking to you, there is no state where there is no Ruga. People that sell cow
cow meat, go to Ruga to buy them. It is clear opposition is trying to distract the present leadership from the good that is going on, especially the fight against corruption.
Elijah Oko Oga, Ruga is a laudable initiative, but the federal government needs to do a better job of sensitization. Already, the farmers' herders crisis has put distrust in the heart of Nigerians. Improve on campaigns.
Kwara Connect. While growing up, I knew very well about Ruga. It's called Rugan Fulani, meaning Fulani settlement. They were harmless, and we interacted well. And we used those places to farm when they moved to the south. But now that we have a different, according to him, different species of deadly Fulani, I'm scared of Ruga.
All right, Ibrahim Tudu, honestly, the federal government information agencies should sit out. NOA should come up with strategies to present government programs better.
Usman Bani Kantu tweets, Nigerians should refrain from making inflammatory comments that are a threat to the unity of the country. Rather, it's time for us to study carefully the concept of Ruga settlement before reacting for or against it. Hence, the need for utmost decorum in handling the issue.
That's all about it,
that, we are taking in the meantime. The issue of information management has come up. Public enlightenment, orientation, and great understanding. It's challenging in the first instance for you to sell government policies wholesale in any country. In any country. I mean, that's why you always have divided opinions. But from a public information management perspective, Malagaba Shehu, what next steps do you think might be necessary with regard to this, for even those that disagree with the settlement idea?
Okay, first of all, can I bring an information to carry in an introductory question, introduction to a question, you know, presented a picture of helplessness with our borders. Of course, we have very troublesome borders all across, but there is a government program that is named the e-border scheme, and it has taken off. And I think that this, you are sure, would do a great deal of help to the country if you bring people in that sector to come and address Nigerians. It's possible, as we speak now, that in the Ministry of Interior headquarters here, you can sit down and see the movement of camels coming across Nigerian border in some of the locations. So the project is ongoing. Challenges of information management are enormous in this country. I said a short while ago, the social media presents an enormous challenge. Only yesterday, the Archbishop of Canterbury issued guidelines. And I believe that our own NITDA is also doing something about these things. Social media for us has done a lot of good, but it has resurrected tribalism. Tribalism was dead after the 60s in this country. It's now back all over again. Something has got to be done going forward. And I want to see that the stakeholders take leadership so that government is not accused of dictatorship. Funding presents an enormous challenge for government media. People have cited NOA over and over again. And I feel sorry for my friend, Dr. Abari, who is the DG of NOA, because the budget is absolutely not there. And in this country, even the Minister of Budget presents a request for you. It has to go through the mill in the National Assembly, and by the time you are out, you go in as a pig. By the time you come out, you are a sausage.
All right, thank you.
There's also chicken sausage, by the way.
All right. But gentlemen, you know, we have been talking about the good, you know, of this very initiative, which of course is laudable and appreciable. But let's look at another aspect of this. And I'd like to, well, everyone, if we have time to look at it. Livestock farming generally has a vast environmental footprint. There's no doubt about that, globally too, contributing to land and water degradation, biodiversity loss, acid rain, in fact, deforestation, if you know, as well. Now, these are risk indicators, right? In the event of, you know, having these Ruga or ranches across Nigeria, how can these risk factors, you know, be managed? I'd like to bring you in, Professor.
Thank you very much. You see, one of the greatest risks of...
Briefly,
is also the issue of spread of diseases. But let us not forget the fact that the government of Nigeria has actually proposed, you know, a law, that is the Animal Disease Control Act. This takes care of movement of animal and then the spread of disease. And by the time you introduce ranching, you will find out that part of you know, your expertise is to manage the resources that they are there, including the grasses. That's the more reason why we're looking for species of grasses that can be sustainable year-round and then provide the greatest nutrition.
Let me stop you there. Is there any symbiotic relationship between the ranching or ranchers and, of course, the other farmers, you know, who have a plant, you know, other crops, that plant crops, yes?
Serious one. If I plant alfalfa, or let me come to what Nigerian know, if you plant corn, and do you know you don't necessarily even need to harvest the corn to save until it matured. If you can just, after 1 month or 2, when it just grows before the baby come out, and you harvest it, and you can sell it to ranch. The ranch buys it and then feed the cattle, in fact, better, and you earn more money. And then even you can export this corn to any part of the world, Mexico.
Let's feed ourselves first before we start exporting.
And that is why I want Nigerians to know that CBN has brought out an initiative where because people see ranch as only government. Individuals too can also put up ranch.
Alhaji Shitu Kabir, sorry to interject, sorry, we are pressed for time. Our director is already signaling. I don't know if you can say this, Chooks, in 10 words or slightly. But by the way, there was a team that was known as Ranchers Bees. I think they were based in Kaduna. Also, Ranchers Bees, you know. So, I don't know, but they had difficulty always with Mendel Insurance because it was a fantastic team. Chooks, I don't know whether you were for Enugu Rangers or Vasco da Gama on those days.
I was for Iwanya National.
Oh, no, Iwanya was a recent team.
Spartans.
More recent.
Spartans.
But Spartans, yes, of Owerri.
Yes.
But more seriously, oftentimes, as we see, public policy implementation is a challenge. On paper, things are fantastic. When you get to implementation, bottlenecks and headaches. What can we do to obviate that in this regard?
Well, thankfully, we have the Senior Special Assistant to the President in our midst. This is now a challenge to the federal government, and I guess by the time Malam Garba Shehu returns to the villa, he will tell the President that, well, this is the perception of the a broad spectrum of the Nigerian populace. It's not just perception, that's the reality. Implementation of policies is usually a heckling tax in this part of the world. So this now presents an opportunity for the change agenda of Mr. President to now be clearly and visibly seen by Nigerians. So let him do things differently, ensure that those who are charged with the responsibilities of implementing this program do a diligent job of it so that at the end of the day, our detractors will be put to shame.
We'll pause you there. Thank you so much. You know, and he's going to do it alone. He has to do it with the team. Gentlemen, we have come to the end of this edition of the program, and of course, it's all thanks all the way for your contributions to this particular edition of the program. Professor Hamidu Sharubutu, Professor of Veterinary Medicine and former Provost, Federal College of Animal Health in VOM. It's been wonderful sharing your thoughts this morning.
Thank you very much.
Malam Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President of Media and Publicity. You have a lot to do this time around, you know, to convince Nigerians on this issue. Thank you so much for being here. Dr. Lanero Alabi, Director, Chief Veterinary Officer of the Nigerian Department of Veterinary and Pest Control Services of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. It's been wonderful talking to you. And Shitu Mohammed Kabir, President, Ranch Owners Association of Nigeria. I want to be part of this arrangement.
I love it.
It's a good business. And of course, Chooks Akamadu, legal practitioner, and of course, community leader in a whole area of Omaya. It's been wonderful too. Well, thank you for being part of the show today.
Thanks for having me once more.
All right, let's take some sports news.
Morocco secured a 1-0 victory over South Africa in their final 2019 Africa Cup of Nations group